Welcome to the 2024-2025 Economic Depression and Preparation Channel. Thank you for joining me on this weekend edition, February the 15th, 2025. We are officially halfway through the month and things are heating up across the board in all sectors, and not in a good way. Inflation heats up to 3% for the first time since June, according to CNN Business Report. Now, this is noteworthy, because, you see this picture of the lady staring at eggs. It's not just the eggs, it's the prices of goods and services that continue to rise, and the tariffs hadn't even taken effect yet. The tariffs that have been implemented so far have not taken effect. They will later on this summer, and this spring and summer, I should say. But inflation heats up to 3%. Now, we know that the real rate inflation, ladies and gentlemen, is closer to 10 to 12%. But the official numbers now are just now coming up to 3%. So we're facing the double-headed monster of inflation and unemployment claims rising. And you're going to see that later on here in the report. Now, this is very much interesting because before the media, the last quarter, the fourth quarter, they were telling us that everything is cooling down. Fed Chair Jerome Powell was telling us there's no need to raise, to lower rates anymore, left rates unchanged. There's no need to, make any drastic changes. We have the tools in the toolbox, etc. And now we have the January report that came in hot pretty much across the board. It's an unwelcome surprise when the cost of living continues to weigh on many Americans. And here's the catch, here's the kicker. Paychecks have not gone up in terms of real nominal increases for the last 25 to 35 years in America. And this is the problem. People say, well, it's only in the low wage areas, and it's only in the, it's not in the STEM careers and all of that kind of stuff. Well, it is across the board. Paychecks have not been able to keep up with the overall inflation, especially in housing costs, utilities, transportation costs to move goods and services between small businesses, and all of these things. So the Dow Jones opened down 300 some points here. Egg prices rise fastest rate in 10 years. And then here's another problem, is that with the unemployment rate, is that the jobs creations, the 140,000 jobs that we created last month, ladies and gentlemen, a lot of those are ghost phantom jobs that are not there in this economy. So the retail spending plunged last month for the first time since August here. So people are just not going into malls. Even the online spending, yes, there's a few things online, but I would caveat the online spending is essential spending. People are buying essential goods and services online, whether that's clothing, supplies for the house, car parts, repairs, just general stuff that that you can get for convenience, because you have Amazon and Prime and all that kind of stuff that comes to you. So, and they don't want to deal with lines or people fighting over the last parts or the last toy or whatever the case may be. So retail spending is going to continue to fall in the springtime. People all over in these states, big states like California, Illinois, Florida, Texas, Maryland, DC, New York, all of these states are going to experience retail flatness heading into the springtime. And this is because people have less disposable income, number one. And number two, Americans, all of us, are only buying the essential goods and services that we need to survive. Food, housing, transportation, utilities, security, prepping supplies, whatever the case may be. And so this is going to be very, very concerning here for the U.S. economy as we head into. Another thing too is Wall Street sees no rate cut in March, and I've been telling you this, ladies and gentlemen. You totally would agree. I don't think we're going to have any rate cuts coming up here until at least, even thinking about a rate cut, until at least July, August time frame. And that's when the Fed is going to have to meet, because we'll be getting into the new budget territory around that time frame. So I wouldn't expect any type of rate cut until then, if it's going to happen at all. Because here's the thing. CNBC.com is reporting unemployment spikes in Washington, D.C. as Trump and Musk, with his new Doge office, begin efforts to shrink the government. So now, just a few caveats on this, ladies and gentlemen. The federal workforce is only about 4 to 5% of the total workforce of this country, number one. Number two, even if we manage to shrink, let's say we move all of the federal offices out of D.C. and all these places, the majority of people, whether they work for the federal government or the state or the local, it's not going to make a big difference, because, number one, we're so far in debt. Remember, we're $36 trillion in debt right now today. So they're still going to have expenditures on the book, because people have, we have the the essential entitlements, Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, disability, VA, home, all that stuff is essential entitlements. But we also have those things that the wasteful spending at the top that's going to continue, basically with the wars and the DOD and all that kind of stuff. And, the upper brass is going to continue to spend this money, and they have to spend all the money before the budget ends. The fiscal year budget ends, June 30th, I believe it is. So, September 30th, excuse me. So they're going to be spending that money. And so it's not going to make a huge difference. But jobless filings continue to surge in D.C. as they continue these cuts. Now, I admit that there is wasteful spending in a lot of the government. It's not just federal. It's everywhere. State and local government. It's private contractors. People forget about that. It's a lot of the private contractors. But there's also a lot of people that work hard. And there's a lot of people that are not doing wasteful activities too. So I think people should keep that caveat in mind too. It's not just that. And also, when it can be argued that the private sector also has a lot of money wasted in contracts with the government that they claim that their claim that is that they're spending the money wasteful too. So I think it goes both ways. It's a two-way street. So people have to keep that in mind that this looks good on paper. Yes, there's some things that need to be cut, but when you're talking about cutting people's jobs and livelihoods, that does have an effect that's going to trickle down, not just on the federal level, it's going to trickle down to the state level and the local level. Remember, you're going to have less taxes and less things going on here because everybody's going to be hurting one way or the other. The same thing that President Ronald Reagan tried, and other people tried it before, and it worked a little bit. Even Clinton tried this. He cut down some of the federal workforce, and they had like a RIF or a reduction in force going on, where they start cutting down on people. But, eventually the spending is not going to get totally under control because there's so many unaccounted for spending, especially related to, wars and things like that nature that I don't want to get into. But let's just say there's a lot of unaccounted for spending that's going on that's still going to be going on regardless of these cuts. I'll just put it that way. So, but you can see the initial unemployment claims spiked here to 1780 claims as of last week, and it's only going to get worse here, not just in these typical government centers that we see in DC, New York, California, Texas. We're going to see it outside of these areas and in other areas as cities, counties, states realize that they're going to have some deficits here. Like the state of Maryland's in a deficit, the state of Illinois is in a deficit in terms of budget. So these states are going to realize they're going to need some money and they're going to be in budget, and the federal government's not going to be able to cover them. And this is where the problem comes in. So expect these unemployment numbers to just rise, not only in the federal level, but you're going to see state unemployment rise, and some of these states are already in trouble. Washington, D.C. had one of the highest unemployment rates in the country at 5.5%, only surpassed by Nevada. Coincidentally, for those of you who don't know, the state of Nevada has a great retirement plan. If you're a state worker in Nevada, they have a great retirement plan. A city worker there, they have one of the best in the country out here. So, but this includes Arlington and Alexandria, Virginia, was just at 2.7%. National unemployment rate was at 4.1%. We know it's double that. Really, unemployment rate's like 8 to 10% really across the country. And this is not counting any shocks to the system here. Okay, so we have to really look at this. This is not counting any black swan events. If a system goes down, because everything is computerized now, everything is monitored, recorded, digital, whatever. So if a system goes down and the central system goes down either intentionally or unintentionally, then that means problems for the U.S. economy and the world economy for that matter, because everybody depends on these goods and services flowing. Like they say on TV, the free flow of commerce of goods and services around the world. Okay, so just to highlight this again, once again, what's going to be happening in the next 2 weeks as we get into March here is that you can expect to see inflation continuing to heat up in March. You can also expect the unemployment rate to go up. Now, the stock market, Main Street, Wall Street, yeah, it may continue to tick up, maybe to 45,000. It's on its road to 50K. Okay, big deal. But the stock market is not the real economy. Because now we're heading into a situation where countries are protecting their resources and assets, and they're going to retaliate with all these tariffs and things going on. And so that means that, because the thing is, we don't produce things here. We only produce about 15% of the goods and services that we need to produce to survive as a nation. And everybody knows, the majority of stuff that we get comes from China, Thailand, Singapore, Africa, Costa Rica, Mexico, Canada, all those countries, and they're going to retaliate and with their own tariffs and things of that nature. So you can expect prices to be high, and it's also expect this too. It's going to take longer to find a job for these people that are going to be cut from the government, the federal government, and or if they're cut in the private sector, because the private sector is not exactly, from what I'm hearing from my friends, is they're not exactly on a hiring spree either. So you're talking, even if they're qualified, and some of these people are qualified. It's not like they're just, coming willy nilly. A lot of these people came to the government after they went in the private sector for 20 years or whatever amount of years they did. So these people are not coming out the street. They're qualified, and so it's going to take them longer too to find a new job, perhaps 6 to 12 months or longer. So this is all got to be factored into the equation, ladies and gentlemen. Our thoughts and prayers are with all Americans, regardless, not just the people in D.C., but the people in Florida, the people in Texas, California, Illinois, Kansas, you name it, Seattle, Washington. Who's going to absorb all of these people if the cuts are made official? And number two, what's the whole end goal of this? Okay, yes, we cut out this, but what are we going to replace it with? Is there going to be new manufacturing and automation economy for robots or whatever? What are we replacing? Are we replacing it with wasteful spending in another area? So, are we we're cutting down the government? Okay, great. But are we replacing it with more wasteful spending and contracts, say for space or something that doesn't affect Americans' lives directly, or some other crazy program that's not going to affect Americans' lives in a positive way? So that's all things to consider here on both sides. I'm just trying to be balanced. I'm not getting political or going on one side and another side. I'm just saying that these are things that they're probably considering here, that the president's considering, and the Doge office and all these other offices are considering, is that what are we going to do with these people that are going to be making these cuts? Americans that are hardworking Americans for the most part. So those are my thoughts on this. Let me know what you think in the comments. Do you think that we're going to see a double-headed monster in this summer of inflation and unemployment rising with spending going down? Or do you think that we're going to get one under control? Let's say we get the unemployment under control, but then inflation goes crazy and we're going to have to end up printing more money anyway, some kind of package, some kind of stimulus package, or is the stimulus package over? The days of stimulus package is over for now. Let me know what you think in the comments. God bless. Have a great weekend wherever you are. President's Day weekend and Valentine's Day. Hope you had a great one yesterday or today if you're celebrating going out. God bless. I'll talk to you soon. Thank you for listening. Be sure to subscribe or hit the like button at least so you'll be notified when the next video comes out on the Preach to Me channel, and I'll see you soon.